I'm about to go in. I run it up in the right kind of yonder. What? Nigga. Shit so fucking hard, yeah. What? Herb is sad, I've been serving and the fag, I've been serving and the fag, out the pen. How a nigga work around the platform, and chirp around the clock, never serving and the spell, out the pen. I love my nigga.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Atypical Security Guard coming to you with tonight's live stream. I'm back. For those of you who do not know, let me be the first to tell you that you cannot show a firearm in your hand during a live stream. They will cut your stream and they will strike your page and they will send you all kinds of emails and information talking about how they will take down your shit moving forward if you ever do it again. So I had to go through some digital training and I have learned my lesson. There will be no firearms in my hand during this live stream. And speaking of firearms, today we're going to be talking about the reality of EDC, the only five things that you actually need. Guys, if you're anything like me and you've been on this EDC journey, this has been something that has been eye-opening for me. It's been educational for me. It's been extremely expensive for me. I think that like a lot of people, you know, you come into this community and you're wanting to be better protected. If you're just paying attention to the everyday news and your life around you, you know, the idea that you need to be protected, the idea that you need to be, you know, ready for anything and able to handle those situations, it's not far-fetched. But once you start going down this rabbit hole, I mean, it can be a costly rabbit hole. It can take a lot of time, energy, and effort. You know, over the last couple of days, I've been going to the gun range. The last couple of weeks, I've been doing some very detailed training, going through some of the agency tests, like the FBI test. Yesterday, I did the federal air marshal test. My goal is to do all of them, each and every one that I can find. And these tests are way more advanced than my level of shooting, my level of training, but I'm doing it to make myself better, to be better equipped and better able to, you know, to handle myself in that situation. But while going through some of the testing and going through some of the training, it kind of dawned on me. I'm like, what are you doing this for? Now, for me personally, I work in the armed security field. So, you know, there are aspects to all of that training, the magazine swaps, you know, being able to engage multiple targets, all of those things that are at a base level important to the job. But if you're not working in an armed capacity like myself, if you're just that average person who's getting into EDC, look at it from the perspective of somebody my age. I'm 46 years old. So the average dad, the average husband, the average guy, 46, 47, maybe approaching 50, not into firearms, but he's understanding what's happening in the world. He knows that he needs to be protected, and he wants to make sure that he's able to do that for himself and for his family. And as he goes down this rabbit hole, how much of this does he need? How much of the equipment does he need? How much of the training does he really need to be successful? So today, that is what we're going to be discussing, the reality of EDC as I see it. This is just my personal opinion. Don't jump down my throat. We all have our own opinions, but this is the reality of EDC as I see it based on my experience over the past couple of years, kind of going down this rabbit hole myself. So let's get into it. All right. Let's do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the top 5 things that you don't really need. All right. When we talk about going down this rabbit hole, you start to kind of feel that if you're not doing some of the things that I'm going to talk about here on the side of the things that you don't really need, you kind of start to feel like you don't belong, right? You can't be one of the cool kids if you're not doing some of this stuff. So these are 5 things that the community makes it seem as though you need, but in my opinion, you don't really need. Let's get right into that. Number 5 is abs and muscles. That's right. If you're following the forward operator guys, the former Navy SEAL guys, everybody who's into jujitsu, right? Like the guys who are really popularizing EDC and preparedness and everyday carry, you know, on a mainstream scale. These are guys with a history of military service, a history of working for the agencies, the guys who were carrying in the appendix position. The vast majority of these guys look like the guy with the shirt off. I'm talking about just jacked and ripped, and it's a lifestyle, and I get that. But we often forget that in the reality of life, more people like the guy with the cigar have put holes in people than anybody else, right? From a mobster standpoint, from the guy who works underground, kind of off the grid in the shadows, that guy with the cigar and the fedora, I guarantee you, he knows where the bodies are hidden. You don't need to be completely jacked and ripped out of your mind to be able to carry a firearm. People do it every day. People have done it for centuries. It is not necessary. All right. Now, clearly, it's in your best interest to be in the best shape possible, but it's not a necessity the way that people make it out to be. Number 4, skinny jeans and Vans. The skinny jeans and Vans phenomenon in the EDC community, it's a little out of control, guys. Some of you guys are looking a little zesty with how tight your jeans are in the Vans. Like, I get it, but it's not necessary. And for guys like me who are a little bit older, sometimes you can't pull them off as well as some of these younger guys. So you don't need skinny jeans and Vans to be a part of the EDC community. All right. Number 3, sidecar holsters. Now, for some of you, if you're not aware of what a sidecar holster is, it's the holster that you can have your magazine attached. Some of the sidecar holsters actually have a place for a tourniquet. You can get to where you're carrying multiple magazines, and this is worn in an appendix position. And for guys who are a little bit older, guys who are newer to the industry in terms of that community, maybe you're not in shape. Maybe you don't have the abs like the guy with his shirt off. Maybe you look more like the guy with the fedora. And sidecar holsters aren't comfortable. They're just not comfortable for the everyday person. Now, if you're trying to become a part of this community, some people can make it seem as though you have to have a sidecar holster. And all of these things that I'm naming off are things that create a barrier of entry for the average person. We are approaching 2024. Let me pull this down for a second. We're approaching 2024, the election. Potentially we're going to be entering like a riot season. I want as many people who are legally able to do so to have access to a firearm. I want as many people who are legally able to do so to be carrying concealed or open carry. Shout out to those states that are now constitutional carry. I want more people involved in that aspect of our community. But a lot of these things are gatekeepers. These are barriers of entry that keep people from diving into everyday carry and preparedness. A lot of this is kind of a joke and it's said in jest, but some of these things are a reality. And the sidecar holster thing is something that a lot of people, when they go into that gun store for the first time, they're trying to pick out their first firearm. If the guy that's working behind the counter is that EDC kind of guy, and he's suggesting that Glock 19, that sidecar holster, this can be an issue for a new shooter. This can definitely be an issue for females. It can be an issue for guys who are a little bit heavier, and this pushes people outside of the community. Number 2, overly expensive, tricked out guns. If you guys saw, I put up a video yesterday of a $13,000. That's right. Let me say it again. A $13,000 2011. This was a custom made Infinity. I'm not sure what the company was, but custom made Infinity 2011. Beautiful gun, all steel. I mean, heavy as fuck. Beautiful, ornate design that's on it. Compensator, buttery smooth slide. Amazing. Don't get me wrong. It was an amazing gun. However, the same person who has access to that, the person that can afford that $13,000 gun, that doesn't change or negate the fact that that person is looking to protect themselves, right? The person that has the $13,000 to pay for that tricked out firearm, their life is no more important than that person that's living on Section 8, that's living in a trailer park, that can barely afford to pay their bills, that can barely afford to put food on the table. And what I hate to see in this community is people being shamed for the kind of gun that they can't afford. My wife's mother yesterday was showing me that she just picked up a firearm. I'm not going to say what kind of firearm it is, but it's on the cheaper side, right? But she's dealing with some financial issues. She struggles a little bit, but she lives in an environment where she needs to be able to protect herself. And it got me thinking, like when you go on Reddit, when you go on YouTube, when you're looking at reviews, when you're reading posts about, people interacting with other gun owners, depending on what you carry, what you have, you get a lot of shame for it. And again, that makes people feel as though the community is not inviting to them. And when someone makes that decision that they're going to protect themselves, that they're going to embrace their Second Amendment, as long as they have a safe and somewhat reliable firearm, we should be more inviting, right? We have to be very careful about shaming people because they can't afford, certain levels of a firearm. So you do not need an overly expensive, tricked out firearm. Now, if you can afford one, that's a different story. And God bless you if you can. I cannot afford a $13,000 2011. I can't, but God bless the guy that can. Number one is something for each and every pocket. Just because you have a pocket doesn't mean that you have to have something in it. Last week, I was talking about the overabundance of equipment that I've kind of fallen into the trap of having, a flashlight, some pepper spray, your firearm, a knife, a certain type of knife, a rape whistle, anything and everything. And I think that we have to get to a point where we're carrying what we need, what we think is important to us based on the environment, where we're at, what we're more than likely going to come up against. But just because you have a pocket and you're into the EDC community, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily have something for that pocket. So now that we've talked about the 5 things that you do not have to have in order to EDC, what are the top 5 things that you absolutely need? The great thing about this list, the great thing about the top 5 things that you do absolutely need is that I only think there might be 1 or 2 things on here that you have to purchase. All right. Number 5 is common sense. You can get rid of a lot of your equipment, a lot of the things that you're carrying, a lot of the things that you're purchasing, just by exercising some common sense. If you're exercising common sense, you'll find that short of you being attacked, short of you being robbed, short of you being caught up in a mass shooting somewhere, a lot of the issues where a firearm comes into play will never happen because you're exercising common sense. So let's think about some common sense issues here. Should you be road raging during traffic? Should you be honking your horn, flipping people off, cutting them off, getting into a back and forth with someone who has potentially done that to you, right? Should you be arguing with the crackhead at the gas station? Should you be getting into it with the guy who clearly is drunk and seems to be homeless, that's having a fight with his equally cracked out meth head girlfriend? Should you be getting involved in that? No, these are the types of things that if you just avoided them, they would not lead you into a situation where you're having to utilize a firearm. Number 4 goes right along with number 5. That's situational awareness. Where are you seated when you're in a restaurant? Where are you getting your gas from? Where are you, taking your girlfriend or your wife out, for a date? Are you hearing the commotion of a certain demographic of kids or teenagers that are getting into a fight and yipping and hollering on a Friday night out at the nightclubs and running towards it so that you can video the fight, or getting your family to the vehicle so you can get out of Dodge? Are you getting into arguments? Are you aware of where you are, who you're around, and what you're doing? Situational awareness will take you so much further than the engagement of actually getting into it with someone. That goes hand in hand with number 5. Number 3 is a plan. If you don't have all of the equipment, if you don't have all of the Batman utilities, sometimes the best thing that you can have to go along with your common sense and your situational awareness is a plan. One of the first things that I do when I go out with my wife, regardless of where we're going, when we get to that location, is I tell her, hey, this is where the exit is. If anything happens, this is the direction that we're going. If the problem is coming from that direction, we're going to go out this direction, right? If we get separated, this is who I want you to contact. This is where I want you to meet me. I have a plan for almost anything and everything. I think about the situations that could happen and what I would do if they were to happen. And I talk about that with anybody and everybody who's with me. Now, a lot of the people who hang out with my wife and I, family members included, they think that I'm crazy. They think that I'm paranoid, that I'm overreacting, that I'm putting too much extras on shit, as the kids say. But having a plan can really help you when shit hits the fan, especially if you don't have all the Batman utilities that we used to carry before. Number two, you need to have a firearm. So we've talked about the fact that common sense, situational awareness, having a plan is important. But at the end of the day, I am a huge proponent that each and every person that can have a firearm should have a firearm. At the end of the day, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But again, this goes back to what we were talking about before. The fact that you should have a firearm on you does not mean that you have to have a super expensive firearm. It doesn't mean that you have to have the latest and greatest firearm. It doesn't have to even mean that it is a brand new firearm. Used firearms serve a great purpose. And the vast majority of the firearms that I have are used firearms. So again, very important that you have that firearm. Just get something that you feel comfortable with, confident with, that you can handle, that you can utilize. But again, it does not need to break the bank. What's the number one thing that you need to have, that you absolutely have to have for EDC? It's redundancy. At the end of the day, guys, whether it's a firearm, whether it's a pocket knife, whether it's pepper spray, whether it's a plan, whether it's common sense or situational awareness, things fail. When I was doing the shooting test yesterday, switching from my very reliable revolver, right, that I've never had issues with, and I switch over to the semi-automatic. So I have the Glock. I think I was using my Glock 17. And so at one point in time, you had to do a mag swap. And as I dropped the mag on the ground, the magazine just explodes into like 4 pieces, right? Spring goes everywhere, follower. And I'm thinking to myself, one of the things that I've been told repeatedly is that you don't have issues of reliability with semi-automatics. Like, that's something of the past. It's not an issue that necessarily people have to worry about, but everything fails. You can have a cylinder lock up on a revolver. So you need to have that redundancy. If you're carrying that firearm, maybe this is where you have that pocket knife. If you're carrying that pocket knife, that's where you have that pepper spray. And again, if any of those things fail, what is your plan? You have to have that redundancy of thought in thinking about what could go wrong, because I guarantee you something is not going to work out in your favor no matter what the situation is. So think about redundancy. Someone made a great statement that the fastest way to reload a revolver is to have a second revolver. Now, it sounds counterintuitive to the conversation that I'm having right now, but maybe if you're going to carry a 5-shot revolver, maybe the redundancy is to have a second revolver. Maybe the redundancy in this situation is to empty out all of the extra stuff that you have in your pockets. And instead of carrying 17 different items, you have your semi-automatic and you have a backup revolver as a boot gun. I don't know. I'm just giving some options there, but make sure that you have some level of redundancy, because guaranteed shit will fail when you need it and you least expect it. All right. So those are my top 5 things that you don't need. The top 5 things that you absolutely do need. I've got a couple of comments here. Let me go ahead and pull these up real quick before we get out of here. Mr. Jack Palance says, hello. Well, hello. Glad that you're here. Glad to have you on the stream. Okay. And also he says 13 grand. Good night. My first car was only $400. My first car was only $500, and I'm going to tell you guys what it was. It was a 1989 2-door Buick Skylark. and this thing was clean as all get out. I didn't want to drive it because all my friends made fun of me, but I would give anything to have that vehicle back. When I went to the military, my mom forged my name on the title, and she sold it and bought herself a fucking Mazda Miata. May she rest in peace. I could have cracked her in the skull, but I didn't because I loved her. God bless her. She had a gambling problem, and what are you going to do? Hoagie McIntosh sent a laughing emoji. Absolutely. Okay. Self-defense all the way. J Dan. Yes, self-defense. That would go into that redundancy. That would fall into that as well. Common sense, not all that common anymore. Absolutely. J Dan, common sense, composure, awareness, stay in shape. 100. PBE says Batman Utilities. What up, bro? PBE, how's it going, my man? It's good to have you here. Jack Powell says nothing wrong with the use piece. Absolutely. PBE, I'm going to email you a YouTube video link. I want you to critique me, and I authorize you to publish, and I accept all comments. I look forward to seeing it and giving you my breakdown of thoughts. Last but not least, 1979 Ford Fairmont. Clean. Man. Guys, if we could have had all the vehicles that we've had, if we could have kept them, right? My dad gave me an immaculate 1966 Ford F1. This thing was so clean, so clean. He had it brand new painted, 3 on the tree, beautiful, beautiful truck. He gave it to me. He put his life and his soul into that thing, and I sold it for $2,000. I graduated high school. I took that vehicle that he had given me. I drove it right to my military base, and I got my girlfriend pregnant. And at the time, I thought $2,000 was so much money. I sold a mint condition 1966 Ford F1 for $2,000. And I've been kicking myself ever since. So in all reality, I can't give my mom that hard of a time for selling my Buick Skylark when I turned around and did the same thing. So I take after her. I am an equal idiot. So anyway, guys, that is all that I have for you. Listen, I would love to know your comments, your thoughts on the top 5 things that I listed that you don't need, the top 5 things that I listed that you do need and that you should carry. But remember, please put those in the actual comment section when this video goes up after the live stream, because everything that you guys say in this chat, none of it crosses over. All right. As always, take care. Thanks for being here, and be great. Be great.
I'm gonna go ahead. I run it up in the right kind of hell no. What? Nigga, shit so fucking hard, hey. What? Sad, I was